Hello and welcome to another episode of the Happy Head podcast. My name is Phil. Now, before I introduce my guest, I'm just going to give you a bit of a preamble because we were talking before I hit record and I had to stop my guest because she's come up with this incredibly amazing story. So look, we've got to get this on tape. Well, I know it's not on tape, but bear with me, we had to get this on tape because it's just a fascinating story. So Carol Boston with the surfboard behind you. Nice to see you again. How are you doing?
I'm excellent. How are you?
I am splendiferous. Thank you very much indeed, Carol. Listen, you've made my day. You just told me this story about how something out of the blue has happened to you, which has kind of just made your next 2 or 3 years fly pretty much, yeah?
Yes, absolutely.
Will you share A, the story, and B, how you got there?
Absolutely. I'll preface it by saying that this is the fourth time in my life where I have chosen to trust in someone else's vision for me until I could believe it for myself. It's how I got a tennis scholarship to a great university when I'd only been playing tennis since I was 15. It's how I got from Dallas, Texas to Miami, Florida for a 27-year, very successful sales career for Fortune 100 companies when I didn't know a thing about sales. And it's actually how I became a professional speaker. And that's a unique story in and of itself. But each time I trusted in someone else's vision for me and just took the next step. And it's a powerful thing that I teach my clients and the people in my audience, right? Is trust in the process and take the next step. You don't have to have the whole picture. So this particular incident, just to let you know the brief story, 2 years ago, I sold my house to take out some equity, pay down some debt, and try to grow my business, right? I'd lived in that house for 26 years. I love stability. If you had asked me, Carol, on a scale of 1 to 10, how flexible are you? I would say 4, maybe 5. Well, how about how adaptable are you? I said, oh, I'm probably a 3. Now, fast forward 20 months, God has seen fit for me to move 9 times in 20 months while trying to focus on growing a business. I would tell you, if you asked me how flexible I am right now and how adaptable, I'm a 10 off the charts. God has shown me so much about who I was created to be and who I'm stepping into. And just as short as 3 months ago, at the end of February, where I was living, my rent was $330 a month. A week, like $1,300, $1,400 a month, right? Reasonable. Overnight, they raised my rent to $1,600 a week, $7,200 a month. I'm like, I'm going to be broken. No, I'm going to max out my credit cards. I got to find a place to live. And thought I had a place, got all packed up. She said, yeah, no, you can't move in here. I changed my mind. I'm like, okay, God, what else is possible? I want your audience to write that down. That is the most powerful of all empowering questions. And I'm known as the Queen of Reframe because what I do is I use empowering questions to help people reframe from focusing on what isn't working. Think about what was not working in my life. But I reframed from focusing on what wasn't working and I opened the door to possibility. My next book that's coming out is going to be called You Can't Read the Label When You're Inside a Jar. And we're all in a jar, right? And all these opportunities are sitting right out here that we can't see because we don't know how to ask empowering questions to get out of our jar. And that's why I believe everybody needs a good coach. I have a coach. Actually, I have 2 at the moment, right? And I'm a coach because we can't see our own stuff. So there I was, challenged. God took me to such a humble place that I had to call a friend and say, look, I can't sleep in my car. My back was injured in a car wreck. Can't take it. I need a place to stay. Very humble. So she agreed and I moved in here and good friend of mine, but she was raised in a challenging environment. She was raised by hoarders. So I knew this environment was going to be challenging for several reasons. And there was a young man that was renting here. You see, every place that God has moved me 9 times is to step up in a place of leadership. Think about it. I'm a business leadership coach and he's growing me more and more with every move. So I get in here the first day and I literally was going to have to sleep on an air mattress at first because the bedroom door was locked. And so I vacuumed the floor, I swept the floor, I dry Swiffered the floor, I wet Swiffered the floor before I would even put down the air mattress. Now, I'm going to come back to this story later if you want, because they didn't tell me that while I was sleeping on the floor, that there was a rat in the kitchen. Now, do you want me to tell you that quick story or get into how I got this new deal?
No, go. I need to know about this, the locked door and the rat and how you dealt with that.
So my good friend, she said, my bedroom door is locked because I have a young man renting, and I'll send you the key in the mail. It'll probably be there by Wednesday. And she said, I just want to let you know I left it messy. Well, for her to say it's messy, it's seriously messy, but that's okay. I know her. I love her. No judgment here. So there I am sleeping on the floor, and they tell me the next morning, oh, by the way, I said, what are these traps? Yeah, we're having trouble catching this mouse. They thought it was a mouse. Trust me, they'd never seen it. It was bigger than a mouse. And so I'm like, okay. And I got up the next morning, and the young kids had bought a bag of potato chips and left it up on the counter. Well, what do you think was happening to those potato chips? That rat overnight chewed a hole, and there's potato chips all over the floor. The next day, more traps. Put out some of those green poison sticks. This rat hauled off three green poison sticks and didn't die. It didn't die. It still comes back. These kids forget. They leave a loaf of bread on the counter. It's a mess the next day. I'm like, dude, put it in the refrigerator. At one point, I have a picture I could share. We had a round circle this big of traps with food in the middle, everything the rat was eating to try to get this rat, to no avail. So on Wednesday, that 3 days, the key comes to the room. I open up the room. He looks at me and I look at him. I said, I'm still sleeping out there. I got to get someone to deep clean this room. So there I am still sleeping on the floor. Fast forward to Monday morning. I'm here, right here at this table, 4:45 in the morning. Nobody's up but me. And I hear this. And this rat runs right across the kitchen floor, looks at me, runs down the hallway, and runs up the air conditioner unit. I run door and I open Zach's door, him and his girlfriend. It's pitch black in there. And he goes, I go, dude, I got the rat. You got to come help me. He goes, I'm naked. I'm like, I don't care. Put on some drawers. It's dark. So he comes out, and we couldn't get it because it had crawled all the way up behind the air conditioning unit. So he says to me, Carol, go on Amazon and order some glue traps. That's the only trap that we haven't tried to get. I said, okay. It's Tuesday, right? They come Tuesday afternoon, and I'm looking at these traps. I'm like, dude, I think these are too small. He goes, oh, no, it's a mouse, right? I think it's bigger than a mouse. He said, we'll put them out. So we put 2 in the kitchen and 2 right in front of that air conditioner unit where he was. Next morning, it's 3:00 at 3:15 in the morning. I'm up. I turn on the hall light and I look at the air conditioning unit. One of the glue traps was totally not there, and the other one was turned sideways. No rat. I'm like, oh, I knew it. I come in the kitchen, and sometimes I have my computer over there because I'm kind of stand up, sit down because of my back. If it was over there, you could see exactly what happened. But I come around the kitchen corner, turn the light on. Me and that rat, we're staring each other in the eye. It's on the counter. It's looking at me. I'm looking at him. I don't want to move. And it tries to run up the back of to get behind the cabinets, and it failed. And it came down, and it was hiding behind a bag of croutons these kids left. So I sneaked down the hall, same thing. Dude, get up. I got the rat. He goes, I'm naked. I'm like, I don't care. Put some drawers on. It's 3:30. He comes in. The rat runs up behind the cabinets. And rats have this fascinating way of squeezing themselves really thin. And it was behind the cabinet and the wall. And I look at him. I said, nobody's resting until this thing is caught. He goes, agreed. What are we going to do? So when 2 cabinets come together, there's a strip of board that holds them together, right?
Yep.
We ripped that sucker off, and he put the flashlight on his phone, and he put it up there. He said, hold, it's right here. And there it was. You could see it. He goes, just keep holding it there. So we'll keep the attention, and I'm going to go find something skinny to poke at it with to get it to come back down the hole so we can get it. Let me tell you, Paul, after an hour, I felt like Moses. I kept saying, dude, I can only hold this up for so long. Remember when Moses had help holding his arms up? I had to keep holding this flashlight up for an hour. Long story short, we ended up getting bamboo skewers, doubled. We tried to do them single. Let me tell you how smart rats are. He's poking. We got 3 of them taped together, and he's poking. And the rat realized, oh, all I got to do is turn around and chew on the stick, and you can't poke me. Think about that. I was like, holy crap. So we doubled them to make them thicker. Finally, the rat doesn't come down the hole. The rat goes up the hole above the cabinet. And Zach yells at his girlfriend, give me a knife, give me a knife. And you hear, whack, 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 whack. He goes, rat blood. We got him. So I go get a couple of garbage bags thinking, you know how people go out and they pick up their dog poop and turn the bag inside out? No big deal. I'm thinking that's what he's going to do with this rat. It's double bagged. He looks at me like I have lost my mind. He goes, give me some tongs. I'm like, kitchen tongs for a rat? Long story short, we put the bag and I put it out by his truck. He goes, Why'd you put it out there? I said, because it's not going in our garbage. When you go to work, you drop it in one of those commercial garbage cans. He goes, oh, good idea. These two kids, young teenagers, 20, 21 and 19, they go right back to bed. I stayed in there and sanitized that kitchen for 90 minutes. That kitchen's never been that clean since she bought this house. They went back to bed. Yeah. So that's the story of where I'm at. Now, this is the first week of March. And oftentimes, you know, the very path we're meant to be on, we're afraid to go down it. I had never had a low end offer. I didn't want to write an ebook. I was in resistance, right? I like working with my one-on-one private clients. And then there we were, and a massive snow and ice storm hit Texas and Mexico. I mean, it's unheard of. It's so far south, it's unheard of. Inundated. And I'm like, I'm the Queen of Reframe. What can I do to help people reframe from focusing on all this bad weather? So I created a new offer. I called it my Snowmageddon offer. $97 for 90 minutes, clarity to cash. We're going to get you totally clear on what's gotten you stuck. And we're going to give you an action plan to get you in place from where you are to where you want to go. It's like an 88% discount. It's $1,000 value, right? And guess what? People started buying it. And so I show up like as if they paid me $10,000 for this 90 minutes. I even was giving them a 2-week follow-up. Here's some of the results. The first lady had been wanting to be an entrepreneur for 35 years, read all the books, been to all the conferences, listened to everybody, couldn't figure out how she couldn't get into action, had her in action in 24 hours. In 24 hours, she's ecstatic. She became a private client like that. The next lady who goes through it, give her 2 weeks homework. 8 days later, she emails me and she goes, OMG, OMG, how did you do this? She goes, I got 75 new people on my email list and 2 new clients in a week. Like that's never happened. I have to work with you. Okay, got another private client. As the story continues, I've now added in 2 months, 8 new private clients. My bandwidth for private clients is almost full after being at the very bottom, not being able to afford the rent, right? Trust in the process and take the next step. Now, during this interim, a friend of mine on LinkedIn said, you've got to meet this guy. So she connected me and I said, oh, okay. And I didn't do it. I was busy, right? Working in my business. She followed up. What are you doing? You need to talk to this guy. Okay. Have a chat with this guy. He invites me to a private speakers mastermind. Okay. So they do a 1-hour networking, 11 to 12, and they start right on time for the mastermind at 12 o'clock. So I had another appointment. I show up at 10 minutes to 12. Everybody there, they know each other. They're talking. And the gentleman who runs it, Stephen, his picture, he wasn't live yet on the Zoom, but his picture was there. And they said, hey, Carol, you're new here. Who invited you? I told them. They said, what do you do? And I told him. And all of a sudden, Stephen came on the camera and he's like this. Oh my God. Oh my God. I wish I'd been on. I wanted to record that. That was amazing. It was specific. It was clear, blah, blah, blah. And I said, would you like to record it? And he said, can you do it again? Just like that? I said, all day long, rolls off my tongue. He said, yeah. And so I did. And what I said was, I help female business owners and a few good men to know their value, own their power, and advocate for themselves. So they rise up and become the Lion and Lioness Leaders they were created to be. And this has resulted in many of them doubling and tripling the income in their business. And I'll be candid with you, it took me 2 years to own the fact that my clients were getting that kind of result. What was I afraid of? I was afraid that I was going to have to make sure that happened for everybody. Until my coach helped me understand that's not your job. Your job is to show up for them 110% every time. You're pouring into them the same, using the tools. It's their job, their responsibility, what they do with it. And that released me from that challenge that I was having in my monkey mind, that I had to make sure it happened because majority of them were doing this, right? So at the end of this mastermind, Stephen says, I want you to book an appointment with me. And I want you to book an appointment with my partner, Tim, my partner in business. I said, okay. And so the first one I have this call with is Tim. And I didn't know that Tim was basically there to quiz me and ferret out if I was actually the person they were looking for. And he just looked at me and he said, have you spoken with Stephen yet? And I said, no, that's next week. He goes, I got a question for you. You have the skill set. You have so much content. You have a warehouse of content. You just don't know how to package it and get it out there. And I said, I agree. That's been a challenge. He said, would you be open to thinking about a partnership if we could help you, I don't know, make $250,000 from doing high-end masterminds? I'm like, yeah. I said, I actually was trained in 2016 to be a high-end mastermind facilitator, but I wasn't even committed to being a coach back then. Why was that? Paul, I was still in my jar looking for a job. I couldn't give up on that I was this buttoned up corporate salesperson. So I get on a call with Stephen, and we have a long discussion. And they said, you're made for this. And they said, I want you to put it on your calendar, 2023, 2 years from now, you're going to be running 4 at least $50,000 masterminds that year. Now, I want you to think about that. That's a minimum of 10 to 12 people in a mastermind, and that's with no upsell. And my eyes kind of probably bugged out like this. And they said, trust us. And normally they charge $25,000 up front. I don't have $25,000 up front to give them. And I talk to you often, and I could tell tons of stories just in the last few months about God winks. Like there was a lot of other God winks that got me into this house. I'm here in a position of leadership for these 2 kids. There's no doubt in my mind. I see it right in front of me every day. But there I was, and they tell me all of this, and I'm like, yeah. So you know what I did? I'm like, well, what else is possible? Folks, that's the most powerful, all-empowering questions. There's 2 caveats. You're not to sit around and try to figure out the answer because the answer is outside of your jar. You're to put it out to God in the universe several times a day and go right back to what you're doing. Empowering questions create Oprah aha moments, like things you've never thought of. You're telling God in the universe, I'm open to hearing, seeing, saying, or doing something I've never thought of before. The other caveat is you cannot be attached to the outcome. You cannot be attached to how the answer shows up, because that's how we miss so many of our opportunities and our blessings. We think they should look a certain way, but they don't. And they're right outside of our jar, so we overlook them. To condense the story, after going back and forth several times, getting some changes in the contract, I took this contract to my trusted advisor. And he looks at this contract and he goes, it's a win, win, win for Carol Boston. How in the world did you negotiate this contract? I said, I'm telling you, it's a God thing. It's a God wink. There is no $25,000 up front for Carol. There's no 20, there's no 10, there's no money up front for me. These people trusted in me. I trust in their vision for me that I can do this. I would be comfortable at a $20,000 mastermind. Honestly, today, right this very second, I don't know that I'd be comfortable at a $50,000 mastermind. I've got my own issues and challenges to change my mindset up here to get there. I will get there. I will get there before 2023. I have no doubt. But in this particular contract, how we worked it out is the first client that comes in, and right now we're looking at starting it at a $20,000 mastermind. There's an upsell to 30. And if you want private coaching along with this mastermind, it's $40,000 to get in for the year. I'm working on the promise of the mastermind, everything you're going to get. The first person that comes in, $20,000, that money goes to them. Think about it. Even if they got their first person and they said, yeah, we don't want to work with you anymore, Carol, it's still a win-win for me. They're teaching me the email sequencing, to warm up my email list, how to sequence it, how to ask the questions. They're giving me the interview questions. They're pouring into me. Yeah, they're going to make a lot of good money too. I would expect them to. Guess what else is in the contract? They're going to put me on stages. Put me on stages. If it's a paid to speak stage, they get 10% of it. If it's a speak to sell stage and whatever I sell, they get 10%. I think that's a pretty darn good deal. Listen, this contract is so amazing that if they do the work and they put every single client in that first mastermind, everyone, let's say it's not a $20,000 mastermind. Let's say it's a $15,000 mastermind with no upsell. 55, 45, they get an extra 5% if they put the people in my mastermind and I had nothing to do with it. I still make $80,000. I would gross $80,000. Who does that but God? I mean, come on, right?
That's incredible. It really, really is amazing. What's the one thing, Carol, apart from the God winks, that got you there? Because you've gone from, like you say, it being stuck in your jar a couple of years ago, looking for a corporate sales job, to where
Yes.
you are today. What was the big shift? What was the big ding, ding, ding?
I got fired. That's how I left corporate America. I had been there for 26 years, very successfully, sold over $70 million, walked the stages, got the awards, managed the people. I thought I had it made, right? I could do this in my sleep. And then in the summer of 2014, I get a call and they tell me they're cutting my territory by 80%. I'm like, 80%? I've been building this territory for 6.5 years. Well, you didn't have to tell me twice, Paul. I thought they were setting me up to fail. Now, I was a weird salesperson. I love structure. I worked for the large Fortune 100 companies, and I'm a rule follower. Not true for most salespeople. But a friend of mine whispered in my ear about an opportunity at a very small company, and I thought, I don't know, I'll go. They interviewed me twice. They doubled my base salary plus commissions, and they gave me a director title. I could just see the potential, so off I went. Now, I negotiated a vacation up front because I'd already paid for it. So there I was, 6 weeks into the job on vacation, being what I thought was a good employee at the time. What does Maya Angelou tell us? We do the best we can with what we know, and when we learn better, we do better. So I do not advocate for my clients anymore that when you're on vacation, you stay in touch with the boss, but that's what I was doing. And I get this email, and it asked my opinion on something. So I replied right back, and I waited because he usually replies right back, and he didn't. 12 hours later, we come in from dinner and cocktails, and ding, there goes my phone. Carol Boston, you've got mail. And here's what it said. Carol, comma, that's what you really think? And it had 5 question marks behind it. Then it said, don't come into this office on Monday when your vacation is over. You're done here. It's like, what? Wait a minute, I don't get fired. I just got fired in an email for an opinion I was asked for. Now, one of the reasons I say I help my clients, especially my female clients, advocate for themselves is because I didn't do it back in 2014. My mind said, Florida's a no-fault state. It's an at-will state. They can fire you for any reason. That's not necessarily true, but that's what I thought. But I came back and I had an interview the very next day. And I interviewed all over this country. I was flown to California, Chicago, Austin, Atlanta, New York City. Sometimes 3 and 4 interviews deep to crickets. I thought, how ironic that I can close $70 million worth of business for somebody. I can't close a deal to get myself a job. Now, faith is my foundation. I was depleting my 401k, determined to get a job. Come on, folks. Every one of my clients committed to their jar, committed to their jar. That's why I say I help them step into who they were created to be, right? So we can throw an anchor into their future and they can let go of that story from the past. That's what I had to do, let go of that story that I was a buttoned up corporate salesperson. So many months into this process, in my prayer time, I was like, God, I kind of really did yell at it, Paul. And I said, look, you created me. You know I'm not cut out to be an entrepreneur. I do not want to own my own business. You got to help me find a good job. Literally 2 weeks to the day from that prayer, out of the blue, I get an email from a woman that I met one time out of town at a conference. She and I must have chatted for 30 minutes at that conference. She gifted me a $3,500 ticket to go to Guerrilla Business School in Los Angeles. What? I figured, I don't know what I don't know. And what I'm doing certainly isn't working, so I'll go to Los Angeles. And off I went. We see my God has a sense of humor because Guerrilla Business School was a foundational school for entrepreneurs. And the first thing I learned there is why I called it my new book coming out. You can't read the label when you're inside a jar. I also learned that I had forgotten how to dream. We get in our jars and we take on what life sends to us and think life is doing something to us when life is really doing something for us. All of this, when I say very often the path we fear the most is the one we're meant to be on, I was meant to be doing this. Changing, transforming lives in a positive, permanent, and radical way. The other thing I learned there was about the power of empowering questions, and I was determined to master them. And I would tell you, Paul, that I have yet to meet another coach, and there's a lot of coaches in my tribe. I talk to a lot of coaches. They don't understand how to ask empowering questions. It's mind-boggling. but I learned from the best. And when I look back, we can always see God working when we look backwards, right? We can connect the dots. And God had been stepping me into leadership from a very early age. I didn't know that. I just kept doing it. And I studied with the best, right? I studied with John Maxwell, Michael Eisner. He was like a pioneer in leadership, Lisa Nichols, Nurka. And I invested in some more courses, but I was still looking for a job. I got my first coaching certification at the end of 2015, and I was still looking for a job. Clueless, not committed, not to doing anything. I want you to fast forward 2 years. I did this. And it was in the fourth quarter of 2017. I was getting my second coaching certification under Christian Michelton, multimillionaire coach to coaches. That's all he does is coach coaches. And we're on a phone call with about 100 people. It was before Zoom. And he says, Carol, you're a sales coach. I said, I don't want to be a sales coach. He said, Carol, it's the hottest niche with the fewest good coaches, and you are really good. I said, I don't want to be a sales coach. You could hear him sigh. He goes, okay, Carol, what do you want to do? And I said, my ideal client knows and accepts that they are 100% responsible for their experience of life. This man groaned so loudly, he went, oh my God. Personal development, Carol, that sounds like work. People are not going to pay for work. Sell them what they want and give them what they need. Now, I just told you a few minutes ago, I'm a rule follower. That sounded like bait and switch to me. I wasn't doing that. So when I started, I called myself a leadership coach. But here's something else that happened in the fourth quarter of 2017. In December, I still had my 3 little services I was trying to sell into HR, big corporations. My goodness, was I resistant. My next book is going to be called The Reluctant Entrepreneur. That's me. And I'm at Nova Southeastern University talking to this lady about my 3 products. And I'd met her once before, and she had asked about what else I was doing. And I talked a little bit about my coaching and what was going on after I got fired, blah, blah, blah. We're walking back across campus. And she stops and she looks me up and down and she says, I know what I'm going to do for you, Carol. And I said, what? She goes, I'm going to hire you. I said, to do what? She said, to speak. I said, to speak? She said, don't give me that bullshit. You're a speaker. And I said, who am I going to speak to? She goes, I'm going to put you in front of 55 or 60 of the top HR people of the top corporations in South Florida. I thought, oh my goodness, I'm in a frying pan. And I said, when am I going to speak? Now, this is December the 9th, 2017. She said, March. I go, what? How long am I speaking for? She said, 90 minutes. I said, 90 minutes? I'm in the fire. I'm not in the frying pan. I'm in the fire. And she said, don't give me that. Send me your CV and send me your fees. My fees? I'm going to get paid to speak? Like this was, you talk about a God wink, but this is another time where I trusted in someone else's vision for me. And folks, I'm going to hammer this into you. This is powerful. Find the right people. And see, this is what I do for my clients. I hold that vision for them. I know who they were created to be. It's biblical. God says, call things that aren't as though they are. You must believe and then you see. And I'm going to remind me to give you a powerful example of a client and how it changes lives. So fast forward, I'm in 2018 and I happen to have an offer. Oh, one other big lesson. I learned there was a big difference between being committed and being convicted, right? I kept saying, I'm committed to being a coach. My behavior said otherwise. And then I learned that people decommit every day, don't they? They say, I'm committed to this marriage for life until the day I'm not. But when you're convicted, you will not rest until you get it done. And you understand that your courage and your conviction and your confidence and your comfort, they don't live on the same block. They're not even in the same zip code. You got to get uncomfortable to have what you say you want. And so I made the decision and I let go of all those services and I stepped in to being a coach and a speaker. Now, in that particular business office that I had, I met a great woman who became the content writer for my workshop. She helped me with my workshop. She helped me with my talks. And I met another woman who was in HR. And here's another God wink. My 90-minute workshop at Nova Southeastern got moved from March to August the 9th. It just so happened this other lady in HR wanted me to give a workshop to the Kaiser University HR department, but she wasn't the final decision maker. So she put me in touch with a lady who was, and this lady was giving me a rash of you know what. Oh, I'm not too sure your topic's right for our people, blah, blah, back and forth. She wasn't even paying me, right? Back and forth. And Lori, my content writer, said, Carol, just don't do it. She's giving you such a hard time. Just focus on Nova. I said, no, I am not going to go to Nova and get paid to give a workshop that these people are getting credits for and never having done one before. She goes, you're not even doing the exact same workshop. I understand. So I moved forward. I did the workshop at Kaiser. 7 days later, I walk into Nova Southeastern University at 6:45 in the morning with two of my best friends who were going to be there to support me. And oh, by the way, the other lady that was speaking at Nova, she has like 19 degrees behind her name. She's PhD this, LCW that. She's written a book on the brain. I'm like, oh my goodness. So we walk into the room, and all of a sudden there's this booming voice, and it goes, Carol Busta, across the room. And I'm like, the lady who hired me looks at this gentleman and says, you know Carol? He said, she is the only reason I'm here today. And I thought, oh, more pressure. His name is Barry Johnson, amazing man. We had worked together for 10 years, the whole decade of the 90s at AT&T. So I decided I would go help this lady set up. She was speaking first, and I'm helping her set up. And she says, so Carol, how long you been on the circuit? I was like, what circuit? And she said, the speaking circuit. I said, oh, I'm not supposed to tell you. She said, why not? And I said, because last Thursday was my first one. This is my second one. She looked at me like I had lost my mind. So she did her 90-minute thing. To be generous, she lost the audience. There were people at my table telling me they were going to take a nap. And I was like, be nice, be nice. So it was my turn to get up, and I went into the bathroom, and it came, and I'm stretching. And this lady who hired me comes out and grabs me. She's in my face like this, grabs me by the shoulders, and she goes, you are going to increase the energy in the room, right? And I said, absolutely. I'm just concerned there's not enough time for my content. She goes, that's what we want, content. You're not using those damn slides, are you? Nope, no slides for me. I'm good. Here's the first lesson I learned as a professional speaker. Make your own time cards. I asked her to keep my time. I timed out my talk, right? My 90-minute talk. And she said, no problem. Well, it came time for her to hold up the first time card. Now there's 55 people, 53 people in the room, pretty big room. And she's over there, and she holds up, and she wrote it with a little big pen. I couldn't read it. So right in front of everybody, I just said, I can't read that. And she told me what it was, and I paused for a minute. It didn't sound right. But I got everybody engaged in an exercise at their table, and I walked over to her, and I said, no, I have 45 minutes. We started 15 minutes late, remember? She goes, oh, yeah. I'll change the time card. Time goes by. Next thing you know, she's at the very back of the room with my BFF who was taking video for me, and she holds it up again. And everybody in the room just laughs because they know now it's really too far away. I'm like, I can't read that. And they both spoke at the same time. And what I thought I heard was 3 minutes. And I thought, 3 minutes? I looked at him and said, give me 4 and I'll wrap this up. So I wrap it up. Everybody's standing up and they're clapping. And she makes a beeline around the room and gets in my ear. She goes, I didn't say 3 minutes. I said 30. Sit them down and teach them something. True story, folks. I don't make this stuff up. I said, okay. Guys, this is a blessing. Guess what? There was a challenge with the time. We've got 30 more minutes we're going to have live Q&A. We're going to blah, blah. Everybody sits back down. Now, one of the things you will hear me say is that when I give my talks is I'll drop a golden nugget and I'll say, now that's a writer downer. So there I was in this 30-minute teaching, and I said something, and a lady in the front of the room said, that's another writer downer, isn't it? And I said, yes. And the thought crossed my mind, these people are actually listening to me. Think about it. I'm trusting in someone else's vision for me. This is only my second time, and I got paid. I got paid less than she did. Here's another golden nugget. They pay her more just because she wrote a book. Just because she wrote a book. They told me. And she lost the whole room.
Just because you can write a book doesn't mean you can speak.
Amen. Amen. So there I was, and I'm in the 30 minutes, and we finish up, and there were 3 ladies in the room, 2 who knew me well, and 1 who had heard me speak the week before at Kaiser. Now, she's a big German lady. not fat. She's big, taller than me. She comes up to me and I'm looking up at her. She looks down at me. She's not smiling. She's German. And she says, Carol, you were good at Kaiser last week. And I'm waiting. And she pauses. She goes, you were fucking amazing today. I was like, I didn't know what to say, right? I was like, what a setup. She like set me up. And then the other two ladies came up to me and said, you're right. That this is one of your God winks, Carol. And I said, what do you mean? They go, you were so in your element those 30 minutes. It could have been completely different. And a lady walks up to me and introduces herself. And she said, do you have a business card? And I said, yes. And she gave me her name. And she's vice president of human resources for American Express. Everybody knows American Express, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And she said, I want you to come give this same workshop to my HR team. And I said, great. Do you have a business card? And she said, no. Now I'm a salesperson. Salespeople do what? They follow up. How in the world am I going to follow up if I have no idea how to reach you? She said, don't worry. I'll call you. What did I do? I chose to trust and took the next step. 4 weeks later, she called me, and that resulted in me being hired 6 times, 6 very well-paying times in 2019 at American Express, just at American Express. Folks, find the right people, trust in the process, trust in their vision for you. I had a client in 2018, female family lawyer, owned her own practice for 4 years. She hired me. And one of the very foundational pieces of work I do is to help my clients get clear on who they were created to be, not who they think they are based on some story they brought with them. And so we do that by crafting empowered I am statements. And I want these statements to be a stretch, not a stress, but a stretch. And I customize these for every client. None of them are ever the same. Each client is different. So one of the statements I gave her, and my clients say these out loud twice a day. When they come in my office, they got to stand up and say them because I can tell which ones they own and which ones they don't. The one I gave her was, I'm a powerful CEO of a fast-growing law firm. There's another woman looking at me like I have lost my mind. She goes, my law firm isn't growing at all. That's why I hired you. She probably wanted to say, you idiot. So I give them a special phrase to put in front of it. When the leap is too big from where they are to where I know they belong, I give them a special phrase. I only give that to my private clients. So she started working with that. And about 2.5, 3 months goes by. And one day she walks in and basically sticks her chest out and she goes, I'm a powerful CEO of a fast growing law firm. And she began to step in to who she was truly created to be. And we did a lot of other work, right? We worked on her marketing and all kinds of things in her business. But if you go to my website and look at her testimonial, part of her testimonial says, I got more clients in 6 months of working with Carol than I had in the first 4 years of my practice.
That's a powerful testimonial. That's very, very powerful.
And part of it was what? She owned that she had a fast growing law firm. We create as we speak, folks. We create as we speak. But you can't just speak it. You've got to own it. And that takes practice and tools to own it. My very first live speaking gig since COVID was at the end of February. And it happened to be at a luncheon at the Tower Club of Fort Lauderdale. It's the Extraordinary Women Who Lunch. And this past client happened to be one of the co-chairs of the lunch. And she had been trying to get me there since November. And I'm like, nope, don't feel comfortable. Nope, don't feel comfortable. So finally in February, I went and she introduced me. There's just nothing like being live versus Zoom. And I can be highly engaging on Zoom. I mean, I'm Energizer Bunny, right? But there's just a different feel. So I always eat lunch after I speak. And so I sat down and she was sitting there with me and a couple of other people. And I said, you know, she and I haven't worked together since 2019. It's been 2 years now. And we kind of quasi stay in touch over Facebook and stuff. And I can see when she posts some stuff on Facebook, how much she's grown and changed in her business. And I said, how is it going? And she just looked at me. She said, it's exploding. I've got to hire another paralegal. I'm thinking about bringing on a partner. I had to hire another assistant. I said, this is awesome, right? She said, you just have no idea. She truly owns it. She has a fast growing law firm and now she's created it. It's really powerful work.
Obviously, we don't have time to go through the entire process, but you just mentioned kind of like the foundational thing you take your people through, Carol. What is the globally the process that you take your client through, from this lady that comes in who's having a hard time getting her business to thrive, to coming out the other end with a thriving, growing business, a person who actually owns that image in her mind?
That's the foundational piece with every client. There's actually four main areas. One of them I break down into two that I work with my clients in, and those don't always come in the same sequence. It depends on where the client is. Maybe they've been in business a year and they've got these challenges. Maybe it's like this one couple that I coached that owned a very unique travel agency, and they'd been in business together for 10 years. They had different challenges, but they still didn't know who they were truly created to be. And so that foundational piece is just, it's paramount for every client. So then the other four areas I work in is strategic action plan, upgrading your skill set, mindset mastery, a big area that I work in, and taking a 360-degree look at your environment. And why do we look at the environment? Like, someone said to me, well, Carol, their environment, are you helping them lose weight? I'm like, some of them have. Your environment's not just about losing weight, right? You have a mental, spiritual, physical, and environment. And one of the things I often tell people and speak on, it happened to me, is that entrepreneurs want their family and their friends to support them. And oftentimes those are the very people that don't. Maybe they're afraid for you. Maybe they don't understand. Maybe they're jealous. Here's a writer downer. Jealousy is just admiration that's been hijacked by the ego. Think about that. Ego gets in the way of even people supporting you. But here's the thing I tell my clients: God didn't give your vision to them. He gave it to you. It's your job to surround yourself with the people who will support you and hold that safe space. Hold that safe space to get you to where you said you wanted to go. But Carol, the mountain's too high. The mountain's too hard. No, the mountain would be harder if the mountain was slick and smooth. Then you could never get up the mountain. The mountain has holes and crevices for your feet and your hands so you can pull your way up. And if you're lucky and you do the work right, you've got somebody above you, whether it be a coach or a mentor, that's helping you up, and you got somebody pushing your butt up from behind, right? That's your team. That's your team. And so we work in those four areas. I am creating my first course called Limitless Leadership, 7 Steps to an Unstoppable Business, right? The first step, for example, is become the lion or lioness leader. That's the first step, right? That's the clarity step. And then we go through those steps. The last step being, I renamed it, hold on. Raise your game, how to become a professional athlete in your business. Because I know what it takes. I've been a professional athlete. And some of the very things that I take from being a professional athlete and having a successful sales career for 26 years are what I bring to my clients, right? So let me give you, I'll give you 3 bullet points on what it takes to become a professional athlete in your business. The first thing is you show up every day, no matter what you feel like. Come on, how many entrepreneurs? Yeah, I'm going fishing today. Now, going fishing probably means sitting in front of Netflix all day, right? You show up every day, no matter how you feel. My clients learn how to make business decisions, not emotional decisions. It's powerful. Emotions are fickle, folks. They come and they go. Show up every day. Absolutely. Show up every day.
Right in front of me.
Fantastic. No wonder you and I, we think a lot alike. Cool. The second thing you do is you have to be willing to practice when everyone else is resting. And I'm going to come back and give you an example of that, because I don't mean be a workaholic. The third thing you have to do is you have to be willing. You have to have the mindset to be willing to do the same thing over and over and over repetitively to master it. It's not about looking for something new and different. I have a fairly new client right now, and in speaking with her, it came about that she had done something very successfully like almost 15 years ago. And when she talked to me about it, her eyes lit up. And I just looked at her and I said, very often with entrepreneurs, I find one of the biggest challenges is they stop doing what was already successful because they were looking for the next new shiny thing to do. I said, what if you took that and turned it into this? She was like, oh my God, right? Sometimes it's just the little tweaks, but it's also staying. We have to be willing to do what works repetitively without getting bored. If you're bored, change your mindset, right? So when I talk about becoming a professional athlete in your business, back in, and tell me how much time we have, because I was going to give you one more story. You said you had plenty of time. I probably got about 20 minutes. And I'd love to come back and talk to you for 4 hours. Anyway, because you're not doing enough of the talking, right? But I was raised out in the country between two brothers, no sisters. Didn't have a great relationship with my mom, but let me tell you, I could play tackle football, baseball, and basketball with the best of the boys. And when I was 13, my dad said, let's go play tennis. And I said, what's that? Oh, it's kind of like swinging a ball bat. You can do it. Come on. And off we go. After 30 minutes, I walked up to the net, put the racket down on the ground. My dad just turned 90 2 weeks ago. He will tell you this is true. I put the racket down and I looked at him and I said, don't you ever ask me to come do this again. You brought me out here to embarrass me. You see, because I couldn't do it. It did not come naturally. It was not like swinging a ball bat. And yet being raised in a very competitive environment, 2 years later, I noticed that my friends on the swim team would go down and play tennis in between. So what do you think I did? If they can do it, I can do it. Now, we didn't have money to belong to a country club or private lessons or anything. I'm going to date myself really big, right? But I had one of those old John McEnroe wooden Dunlop rackets, right? Cheap. And what I would do, and I translate this into my business clients, what I would do is I would go down and sit on the side of the court and listen to the pro teach the other kids because I knew my mind was a sponge. And if I kept myself in the right environment, I could learn. Write that down, folks. What environment are you in? I left the mastermind back in November and the guy said, why are you leaving? I said, I'm the smartest person in the room. I want to be with people that have done more. They're bigger, they're better, they know more. I want to grow. This is just not here. The second thing I thought is if I can get the kids who are better than me to play with me, i.e., think about your mastermind, the kids who are better than me to play with me, I'm going to get better. I got to get better if I'm listening and practicing. And so I did. Fast forward, I actually made it into the number 6 position on the high school team. Number 6, that's awesome because the top 6 get to play singles and the top 3 get to play doubles. Now, another blessing's coming up. The other 5 girls on the team all came from money, all belonged to Piermont Oaks Country Club, and all had had private lessons since they were 5 years old. They were way better than me. This is awesome. Also, when I say be willing to do what others aren't willing to do, be willing to practice when they're resting. My friends would go out on Friday and Saturday night and I would go to bed. Because what one of the teaching pros did at this little place called Riverside is he saw how much I wanted to learn. So he built this contraption and it was at an angle, kind of like this, plywood. And he put it in the service box on the other side of the net. And I would be down at those courts on Saturday and Sunday morning at the crack of dawn. And he would give me a grocery cart full of balls. And if I hit my serve correctly, that board would give me a volley back. I learned to serve and volley with nobody on the other side of the court. That's a God wink. Someone believed in me enough to do something for me. So at the end of my junior year, my dad is very Southern. He says, now, Carol, you need to get a job or you need to get an academic scholarship. I can't send you to college. And I said, but Dad, I'm going to get a tennis scholarship. He paused. He really kind of looked down his nose at me. And he says, Carol, like I said, get a job or get an academic scholarship. But there was someone else who believed that I could do this. See, this was the very first time. I told you there was 4 stories. Mm-hmm. This was the very first time I trusted in someone else's vision for me that this was possible. Fast forward to the end of my senior year, I got 3 full offers, 3 full rides. They were to colleges I did not want to go to. I wanted to go be an LSU Fighting Tiger. Here I am with my LSU cup, decades later, still got it. And I got a half scholarship there. So I took out a student loan and off I went. What do you think my dad was doing? Folks, your family's not always in your corner. I went to LSU and I got to play number 6. I was ecstatic. Now the girls on the team were even better than me. And my doubles partner went there as well. So we got to play number 3 doubles. I played number 6 my whole freshman year. We get to the end of the year, and here's what I'm talking about, folks. It's not about being a workaholic, but are you willing to practice when everyone else is resting? That entire team took the summer off. They were too tired. They were whatever they were. I got on the 21 and under tour, determined to keep my seating, because if you stayed in the top seeds, you got free housing, and I needed free housing. I was hitching rides, and I needed free housing. I started practicing with the men. They hit the ball a lot harder and a lot faster. Paul, I came home a lot of days bruised. I couldn't get out of the way of that serve fast enough, much less return it, but I kept doing it. Came back to my sophomore year. We had tryouts in August. All the same girls on the team. We had one new freshman out of Canada. I went from playing number 6 to playing number 2. By the end of that semester, I was playing number 1 and never looked back, and led the team as number 1 and team captain for 3 years. So all along the way, and there's stories even before this, God had stepped me into leadership. It's really about personal leadership. Your business is only going to grow as much as you grow. Actually, a few years, this is a decade ago, probably. I don't know if it's still true, but I was on a dating site. I was single. I was on a dating site, and some lady from North Carolina reaches out to me, and apparently she goes and looks up my background. And she sends me this email. Well, why the hell didn't you tell me that your record, your tennis record at LSU, is still among the top 10 ever in the history of the school? I replied back, I said, because I didn't know. I didn't know. Right? And that's key, because one of the things, what I help my especially my female entrepreneurs, is learning how to celebrate. You see, I'd forgotten all that. Oh, that was just something I did before. No. You bring those accomplishments with you, right? You celebrate them. You celebrate them.
Right, Carol, we're going to have to finish soon. So what I would like from you is a writer-downer, a kind of a general thing that people watching, people listening can go off and do to help them start doing better in their lives.
Okay.
I'm sure you've got one.
I got a couple. Can I weave them together?
Yeah, go for it.
The very first thing is just take the next step. You don't have to have the whole thing figured out. Action begets action. Here's the thing. Even if you think you're making a poor decision, make a decision and make the decision right, because a poor decision is better than indecision any day of the week. Indecision keeps you stuck. You don't get in any action. Trust in the process and take the next step. I believe God gave me a lamplight only for my feet, because that's all I got to see is the next step. The how will come. If you know really true underneath why you're doing it, the how will come. The other thing I would tell you is that no one does it alone. You must be willing to invest in yourself at the level that you want to play. I play at a pretty high level right now. I had a new client say, have you ever invested that much in you? I said, absolutely, more than once. If you want somebody to pay you $5,000, but you only want to invest $500 in somebody helping you, doesn't work. Doesn't work. You have to be willing to invest at the level that you want to play. And never forget, I'm going to give you 2 writer-downers. I told you earlier, the most powerful of all empowering questions is, what else is possible?
Yep.
You put it out to God in the universe 8 or 9 times a day out loud around whatever you've decided you're working on, and you go right back to work. Your job is not to figure it out. It's to be open and receptive to something that's outside your jar. The second thing is, this is a big writer-downer. An empowering question never, never, never starts with the word why. Why brings in defensiveness, which brings in the ego, which brings in emotions. And when emotions go up, intelligence goes down. It's true for every human being. I had someone tell me recently, you need to put a course together for parents who are constantly asking their kids why and getting into arguments because the kid immediately gets defensive. It's true. I actually give examples of that in some of my talks about things parents could do differently with their kids, right? To stop having arguments and start having healthy conversations. Empowering questions allow you to take the emotion out of the conversation and to get somebody else. How many of you would like to get somebody else on the same page as you faster and with less resistance? That's what empowering questions will do. So now I just kind of rambled on. So here's my two. Take the next step, get into action without judgment. We got to let go of the good or bad. This was great. That sucked. It's okay. This worked. Celebrate the fact that you did it. Success is in the attempt, not in the end game. Look at what didn't work and tweak that and take the next step. Evaluate again. Take the next step. Because here's one thing that's true for every entrepreneur, and a lot of entrepreneurs don't want to own it. But one of my middle names is Tell the Truth. Uncle Johnny used to introduce me as, here's Carol, Tell the Truth, Boston, right? Everybody starts at the back of the line. You got to get in line and stay in line. And the question is, how long can you, not your family, not your friends, how long can you hold the vision that is only yours?
Carol, I could sit here and listen to you all day. That was absolutely brilliant. Before we go, where can people reach out to you?
All of my social media, it's the @ at THE, at the Carol Boston. Come follow, that'll get you to my business page on Facebook. You can private message me there. My email is easy. It's carol@carolboston.com. There's no E in it, just CAROL @carolboston.com. LinkedIn, connect with me. One of the things I can offer your audience, I can offer them a couple of things. One that's just been radically changing lives is that Spring into Action call. It's $1,000 value. The investment's only $197. I can send you the link if you're open to me doing that. If not, I'm happy to do that. Trust me, you will get clear on what's keeping you stuck. I had one lady, she's now become a private client. She called me up ecstatic, and in 2 weeks, she grew her revenue stream 33% in 2 weeks. It's been stagnant for 2 years. One of the things I've learned in this process, when you step out, folks, is you learn something about you too. And what I learned that I had not been owning is that I'm really, really good at getting people into effective action to get immediate results.
That is incredible. Carol, thank you so much for your time. Listen, folks that have been listening and watching, connect with Carol. If you need help, she is really going to kick you up the backside and get you moving.
Yes.
See you on the next one, folks. Bye now.